Hi guys, this is Nicolette Glazer, and I hope you are doing well. I am going to talk to you about the very, very controversial but interesting. Hi guys, this is Nicolette Glazer, and I hope you are able to see me. Sorry the problems I have going off live today, but anyways, we are here today, and I want to talk to you about the very controversial and very notorious now two executive orders that Trump signed yesterday. One is about the 100,000 fee for H1B visa holders and employers, and the second one about the gold card. So let's start with it. And first, if you have never been, I forgot about that. If you've never been on my streams, I don't do them often. Unfortunately, I don't know my schedule. I am Nicolette Glazer. I am a practicing immigration attorney, and I kind of created that channel to kind of share with you some insights, dispel some misinformation about what is going on with immigration policies, practices, and anything in that space. So I thought, well, it's a good opportunity for me to kind of quiet up some of the rumors, maybe give you my 2 cents, because nobody knows what's going on right now and what's going to happen on Monday. So here we go. So first, if you have never ever heard of H1B visa, let me give you the 2 second explanation. It is a work non-immigrant visa that US employers can use to bring in individuals, foreign nationals, who can fill in a position with their company if they have at least a bachelor's degree, and they will be filling in what's called a specialty occupation. Now, I'm not going to tell you or try to explain what a specialty occupation means under the immigration law, because that's going to take us about a week. But needless to say, Congress did not create a H-1B program as some sort of Einstein visa or incredibly one-of-a-kind talent. Quite to the contrary, it was a work visa, sort of like trying to bring specialty occupation, to fill specialty occupation gaps. So Congress, of course, did not give enough visas because they're capped every year. So we have much more demand than there is available visa. So that has created a lot of problem. There's a lot of applicants, a lot of people who want to use it, but unfortunately, because of the way it is set up by the system, there are certain sectors that mostly take those visas because they have needs such as IT, medical field, banking. And because of the high demand and because the USCIS, which is the agency that adjudicates those visas, have had a very odd time, some inconsistent enforcement, and some pretty much like stupid policies. It has created a model, specifically in IT sector, where third parties, companies, the sourcing companies, fill up the need for companies by petitioning themselves, the H1B applicants. And because of that whole system, and I'll leave that for another stream, there've been misuse of the system, there've been fraud in the system. But, again, how prevalent the fraud is, it's subject to debate. There is misuse, I will grant you that. However, what a lot of people have now done is politicize the issue as a form of basically taking away jobs from US workers. And so, because it's a politically charged issue, a lot of people obviously have entered all kind of debate. A few months ago, we had this big brouhaha with Vivek and Elon Musk and other IT luminaries about what the H1B is and how important it is or may not be, etc. And so it's been used for political purposes. And so what we got yesterday is President Trump signed an executive order, which, in my opinion, is just for show. It is, made for TV, sensational thing to do, with full knowledge that court will stop it. And I'll talk to you about that more. But it had the desired impact they wanted. It caused an incredible amount of chaos. It kind of flared the emotions, and it pinned various different political faction against each other, with knowledge that that will continue and leading us in the midterm election, I think. And so why did they do that? I have no idea. What did they do? And let me tell you what I saw into that. And again, all we have so far is the executive order that was signed and some commentary around the actual signing, and then a lot of kind of rumors and innuendos and flat out false information that is circulating on social media to fill that void of information. Now, first thing is they implemented it on Friday. With the first Trump administration, I started a hashtag on Twitter saying Immigration Friday, because they seem to like to drop these really big immigration impactful news or policy regulation, whatever, on Friday. And they do that just to ruin immigration lawyers' weekends, of course, but it is to create that incredible chaos with a dead space where, over the weekend, you can get information, you cannot get information to the stakeholder who needs it the most. So it causes more chaos, more impact on the targets. And so they're doing it, and they've been doing it, and they'll continue to do it because the purpose is to flood the zone. And so they announced that on TV and video, not on TV, on a live stream, that they are putting in $100,000 annual fee for new visa application. Now, I'm going to use and I'm going to emphasize that the executive order and everything that I have heard from official sources so far, from until about half an hour before we started, is that they're talking about new applications. And I think for me that's very important because it means that new employers, so if an employer needs to file for a new employee, or it's kind of parting to an employee from who already have an H1B but coming on board, anything that will be considered a new petition that is filed now have these extra statutory executive order creation of an additional 100,000 a fee for per applicant. Now, this, as you may know, the immigration statute has all kind of fees, and H1B has, with every change by Congress, been stacked with more and more fees, fraud prevention fees, small entity fees, large entity fees, dependent employment fees, all kinds of fees are tacked to this. So it's a kind of like expensive proposition for employers. Legal fees, filing fees, and everything else that comes with this position. So it's a burdensome process. But what they try to do is to create that extra statutory fee of $100,000. It's a huge amount of money. It is intended to grab the attention. It did grab the attention. And so the purpose of the whole thing that they build it is, well, this is how we make sure that only the most qualified, the most desired foreign national will be getting those visas, because those are the only people for whom employers will be willing to spend extra $100,000. And so that's how they build it. In reality, what they're trying to do, this is my view, and again, anything I'm saying, it's my opinion. Whether I'm right or not, who knows? But still, it's my stream, so I'm gonna tell you what I think. So the whole purpose of that is really to entirely erase what Congress has created as a form of relief or of a non-immigrant visa by basically scaring off new petitioners. Why I'm saying that? Because whether the court blocks the thing or not, it has already sent a message to employers who may be willing to file for a foreign national that this visa is under attack, and that, whether it is temporary, whether the Supreme Court is going to allow that or not, whether Congress will come in and do what they did with the one big bill, beautiful bill, with tagging up fees for all kind of immigration application, or another reconciliation bill, you name it. The H1B is under attack, and the way they are wanting to do it is to make it prohibitively expensive for employers. So that message, that live broadcast, in my opinion, already caused a tremendous amount of damage, because it already poisoned the well. Employers will be some of them are already very kind of intimidated by the process, especially small employers, will not touch this visa anymore, because they do not want to be in a situation where you have, let's say, 50 people company, and you need one particular position to fill, and you find this great applicant, and you're bringing him in, you're onboarding him in a company, you train him and everything, but there is this incredible cloud that, even if it doesn't happen now, there's a possibility that maybe 3 months from now or a year from now, if you want to extend that visa, or if you want to keep that employee, you have to pay extra $100,000. Well, if you're a small company or a medium employer, you're not going to take that risk. And so this is the biggest impact that I think this live stream, forget what's going to happen with it, already did. It is a tremendous amount of damage. Now, the the biggest user of the company of this kind of visa, such as the IT sectors, the staffing company like Infosys and all that, those companies, on their side, they are already probably taken an incredible amount of hit because this is the entire model. And so there is no way that companies who in reality do provide a cheaper workforce for the IT company. Not everybody is in that, but there's a large segment that comes from these staffing companies that are basically hired and are operating and working on a discount. So when you have that kind of a company, that cottage industry that has been built, that is targeted, I mean, clearly this is the target of this executive order, it's going to shake the foundation of this system. Now, I personally have been very big opponent of this whole model, the staffing companies, because I think they have abused the system, and also they have taken some really odd made choices, and their practices are predatory with respect to their own employees, and it creates a climate where companies are abusive to these workers. I mean, thinking abusive in a sense of basically restricting them, holding them hostages without raises, without protection sometime, because of that promise that if they don't demand much or if they are not vocal, they will get the opportunity to be petitioned for a green card. So it has created a lot of problem. So I've been vocal about them, and I have thought that should not have been done, but it is the USCIS who has created that environment. It has tolerated them, so people had relied on the fact that the USCIS has allowed them to do that. And so now this rug has been pulled away from practically the employer. I don't think many people will shed much tears about those staffing companies. They have a bad reputation as a general matter. That's my experience, my view. And that's going to create a major, it's a tsunami that is going to happen, especially in the dependent sectors. IT, as I said, medical fields are very reliant on H1Bs. Small veterinary practices are very reliant on H1Bs, and the banking sector is reliant on H1B visas. So this threat of this enormous economic boom that they're going to lower on them is going to affect greatly how employers sees that process and how are they going to operate. Because, as I said, the majority of people who are on H1B visas, especially those who have just started or that they're the first 3 years or the first 6 years of it, are young people. They are not Einsteins. They are not the top 10. They've not risen to the top 10% of their field. They are not extraordinary ability people necessarily. I'm sure many of them will reach that. But when they start, a lot of time they are recent grads. And so it is difficult to fathom that companies will be willing, that rely on those kind of visas in mass, to put this huge amount of money, which is basically a ransom, to the United States government. It is a non-refundable, basically existence fee that they try to put. I mean, there's no chance, in my view, that it will survive district court reviews. I think probably on Monday there will be cases, even this weekend probably, there will be cases that will be filed by a larger, plaintiffs, maybe even states, that will seek to put a temporary restraining order, which is basically a freeze to that particular order, because remember, it is supposed to take effect tonight at midnight and 1 minute after midnight. So I have no doubt that district courts, even if they are Trump appointees, are likely to freeze that and say, no, this is illegal. It is trying to eliminate a statutory program that Congress has put into Title VIII, and the president has no constitutional authority to erase a benefit program of this kind. So I think that's kind of what I anticipate is going to happen. Now, question is, even if they freeze it, we don't know what's going to happen at the Supreme Court's level. So as these kind of cases are going to proceed at the district court level, TRO, preliminary injunction, then they're going to appeal to the Circuit Court of Appeals, they're going to go ask for a stay, they probably will get denied the stay and ultimately will go on the emergency docket at the Supreme Court. And we don't know what the Supreme Court is going to do, but it is possible that they may freeze any preliminary injunction, so basically unfreeze and spring it back into life. And the reason why I'm saying that is because what they did, how did they try to make that monumental change? They did it through an executive order. Why is it relevant? To me, it's relevant because what they did is they invoked Section 212F of the Immigration Act, Title 8, you may have heard about it, which gives the president, only the president, an incredible power, and that is to limit the entry into the United States of certain classes of non-citizens. And if you remember, during Trump 101, there were the Muslim ban, the travel bans that they put in. There was the COVID-related travel bans. There was a lot of bans that were used and built on that authority, which gives the president the authority to prohibit or to prevent restrict the entry into the United States. And so if you read the executive order, you see what the executive order says is we are not changing the statute. They are in the end, but the language doesn't say we're changing the statute. They're saying we're not doing anything to people who already hold that visa or the people who have obtained that status or anything like that. What they're saying is that starting tonight, 1 minute after midnight, the entry into the United States of any non-citizen trying to come in as a H1B visa holder will be basically restricted until they show a proof of their employer paying $100,000. So what does that really mean? To me, it means two things. First, it affects people who already have H1B status, may have held it for, who knows, 10 years, more than that, because a big caveat here. The H1B visas open for 3 years. So if you get an approval, you can get up to 3 years, starting October 1st for the fiscal year in which you get an approval. You have the right to ask for another extension for another 3 years. So you have 6 years. However, if your employer has filed an application to give you a green card, and that green card has been pending for more than a year, you can continue to extend your green card. If you have an I-140 approval, you get longer extension. So there are people who are in what we call the green card backlog, people who are with restricted category, mostly Indian, Chinese, Mexican, and Filipino workers. Who have filed this green card process, and they continue to maintain H1B because there's no numbers for them to get their green cards. So there are hundreds and thousands of people in that category. So they each have an H1B status because somebody has petitioned them a long time ago. Many of them have a valid visa stamp in their passport, which allows them to travel and come back using that stamp and get admitted into the same status. So a lot of them are on vacation. A lot of them may have gone on business and whatnot. However, these people, the way I read these executive orders, if they come in and land, let's say, tomorrow at 8 o'clock in the morning, a CBP officer can deny them entry because this president has signed this order that says, I am restricting the entry of these kind of people. It doesn't say anything about excluding or we basically protecting people who already have that status and just left for a temporary visit to visit family, for vacation, for business trip. It doesn't say anything of that. And so the way I read it, and that's why I told all my employer people that we represent, is you need to immediately tell people to come back before that deadline, because maybe a court will say it's illegal. I expect that they will say that. And maybe the administration would change and say, yes, we are going to exempt these people, because again, the executive order gives the secretary of DHS the authority to exempt, meaning like to say this group of people are not covered by this executive order. So they can very easily come in and say, yes, people who are already H1B holders and who are returning from a short trip abroad, we are not going to apply this to them. They can say that. This executive order allows them to do so, but I haven't seen anything like that. Now, maybe some of you have seen on social media, there is this claim for, I believe it's the New York Times, claiming that some unnamed, anonymous official within the administration said that that doesn't apply to only the executive order only applies to new applicants. Well, first, I am not going to take the word of an article personally as a practicing attorney to advise my client, and I'm certainly not going to do it based on some unnamed source which may have been talking about new applications and misspoke and say new applicant. Big difference. I agree with it that it applies only to new application, but it says nothing about precluding the application of the executive order to people who hold that and are trying to enter. So there's no language there about new applicants. There's no language there allowing exemption for people who already hold the status. So it's a very, very unclear what is going on right now. Well, why did they do that? In my opinion, is to create chaos. It creates an incredible amount of anxiety. It creates a lot of noise on social media. It brings this issue in a front run. It is going to be news for a few days, and then it's going to die out. But if there's litigation, it's going to keep up. Now, you may ask, and some people were asking me, why would they want to do that if they know that the courts are going to block it? Well, I mean, I don't know what they're doing. I don't know if it's a plan, they are incompetent, they just miscalculate. I mean, I don't know that. I can tell you what my read is. And my read is that they did it entirely for show. It was not that they thought, yes, they're going to allow us to make and collect $100,000 per person per year from H1B applicants. I think Stephen Miller, who probably has his hands into this, was actually doing that, timing it with full expectation that it will be blocked by the courts. But here's the thing that I think a lot of people miss in this process. Just because the court may block it, it does not erase the noise that it has created. Because again, the way it is built and the way it is going to be argued and is going to be ventilated in the courts and in the public opinion, the court of public opinion, in endless articles and posts and ruminations on social media by experts, is that the damage is already done. And it is both to the system, and it's already done, and the seeds have been planted politically. Because remember, Trump really was elected on a mandate to go after immigrants, and he has done that from day one. And so what They've done tremendous amount of damage. They have victimized a lot of community, but they have been prevented from going full board because of courts stopping. And then there's immediately they come in and says, oh, a left or a radical judge did this and prevent us from doing that. And so this narrative has been building, and there are a lot of people who sees that as some sort of a constitutional crisis where there is this fight between an administration that wants to conduct mass deportation and close our borders, shut them close, and the judges who have, and Democrats and sanctuary cities that only want to protect immigrants. I mean, this is kind of a framing that only will be used for the midterm election. I mean, the economy is not doing great. The market is not doing great. The housing market may be on a bubble. So things are not rosy. And immigration is this really polarizing, but very beneficial issue that crops up where other things are not going the way politicians want them to go. Why? Because the people who are affected do not vote. I mean, don't kid yourself. How doesn't matter how outraged the immigrant community is, how outraged the people who hold H1B visa or held them in whatever, or how outraged we as people in that space are. The vast majority of people who are not directly affected, who are not holding their visas, sees immigrant, unfortunately, especially H1B immigrant, as taking something that is theirs. So those are the people who vote. H1B visa holder are not voting. The big honchos in the big companies that petition, they have their own interests, so they're not going to take a stand politically necessarily that goes against their bottom line. So in my view, that executive order, just by being announced, has damaged tremendously the system, but also created a narrative that Trump is going to use in the midterm election, because there will be people who will be unhappy with the situation they are in. If the economy is bad, if people cannot pay their mortgage, they cannot afford to buy a new home, they're stranded by medical debt, by student debt, by credit card, any debt which is growing, whatever else hardship that you have, you know, it's easy to blame the foreigners. That has been done for centuries, and it's being done right now. These nativists, lock us in, build a moat around, and fill it with alligator mentality is taking hold. Now, obviously, people are outraged. Some people are not going to take it lightly, but if it becomes a narrative of who are we going to protect, U.S. worker, that's how they're building it, or are we going to protect the non-citizens who are trying to take jobs that belong to Americans? That is not going to go well in a ballot box. Now, so the way that they are building it is that they're trying to protect, they're trying to get this amount of money that is going to be pouring every year for the H1B visa holders to spend in providing training and scholarship for STEM for U.S. College students. Well, I mean, again, that is a winning narrative. So although the outrage right now is large, I think as we go with the cases and as it goes and winds its way through the courts, ultimately the bad taste that is left is going to be there and it's going to be exploited. So, to me, I see this as a very sinister use of power in order to further victimize a community and a class of people that are voiceless, really, politically, and that are easy targets. And that is a scary, very scary place to be. Somebody like me, I've been doing immigration and litigation for, I'm at 2 months below 25 years. So I've seen a different administration. I've practiced in different administration. And I can tell you the one thing that is the most jarring to me is that with Trump first term and now in the last 8 months, the damage, the change that has been done to the system and to the bureaucracy, the immigration bureaucracy is an enormous. And I'm not sure if we ever going to be able to come back from it. And so it's a tremendous impact, executive order. So I'll talk to you probably in other streams because things are going to develop, especially if there's interest. But one thing, and I'm going to close with that particular topic with that is if you are an H1B holder and you are still outside of the United States, I think you need to assess the risk, and if possible, you have to try to come back before midnight. As I said, likely that the court will intervene, but you do not want to be the person who's going to be stuck outside the United States and perhaps waiting to and dreading what's going to happen with the next court and this. So it's now for people who will be filing prospectively. I don't think it's going to be on the books, so it's going to be on and off. However, if you have an employer that is willing to do that, well, more power to you. If you don't, that's going to be a really horrible situation. The biggest blunt is going to the people who already have pending application. The executive order is basically directing the Department of State to stop issuing visa unless there is proof of a payment. And so even if the court strike it, I guarantee you there will not going to be restamping going on. And it's going to be a very much of a storm that's going to hit consulates. If you have an I-1 petition pending, they're not going to approve it most likely, so it's going to stay there for months, and it's going to put people in an incredible lot of pressure. So this uncertainty is basically hitting at the foundation on companies that rely on H1B visas. But most importantly, as I said, it is scaring anybody, any small employer who will think about filing for an H1B. They're not going to do it. So it's going to be a very impactful development. And even if it's stopped by the courts, I think it's going to have a very lasting effect. And we'll see how lasting it's going to be, and I'll talk to you about the next time. However, I want to tell you very quickly about the Trump gold cards. Well, that is another thing that they blasted up on TV yesterday. Trump has been talking about it. You've probably seen the little gold card. And it's a take on the green card, which is the kind of the euphemistic approach to designate people who have legal permanent status. The card is not green, but that's what it's being called. And so it's a card that has your photo, and it has a little, like a Statue of Liberty background, and it basically tells you your name, date of birth, you are a legal permanent resident. And that document is a hugely important document, the most coveted immigration document on earth, which allows people to be permanent resident in the United States with a path to become U.S. citizens. So what they are doing is they're creating this gold card with Trump's face on it and his signature. It looks like a cheap American Express gold card. And they're trying to build it as this alternative or a savior for everything that is wrong with the visa system. And what's wrong? A lot of it is wrong. And it is because Congress created the Immigration Nationality Act in the 1952, basically the current version. They've amended it multiple times, but the whole view of it is to be stuck in the 50s. It is responding to the real economic realities of the 50s, the post World War II. It has zero footing in reality, economic reality, political reality, nothing. And so what we have is these rigid visas that are limited by annual caps, by country caps that have burgeoning requirements of eligibility that are impossible to meet depending how the adjudicator look. They are self-contradictory, they are amorphous. I mean, it's a nightmare to try to follow and fit them. But the biggest thing is there are more demand, there are not enough numbers, and there's not enough visas. So they build more and more red tape and bureaucratic hurdles and requirements and requests for evidence to make it even more difficult. So Trump is trying to sell this gold card and platinum card as the cure on the magical cure for all the visa problems. So they get this gold card, which basically there is a Q&A on a website called goldcard.gov. It's tacky as hell. We have no information because I don't think they know what they're doing and how they're going to do, but apparently it has, or they think it has a good luster to it, and it plays well with the base maybe, or plays well with people of overseas. I have no idea what is it that is driving this, but they've been building it, and so they unveiled it yesterday. By saying the gold card is something that an individual, foreign national, can do and obtain if they agree to give the United States an unrestricted gift of $1 million. And then if they do so, that payment of $1 million, it will be considered evidence that they have they've reached a level of extraordinary ability in the field of business. And the payment of this $1 million is also in the national interest. So basically, the way I read it is they are coming and saying, using the statute that allows what's called the extraordinary ability green card, people who have reached the very top of their field of expertise and obtain incredible amount of acclaim domestically or internationally to get these coveted green cards by basically self-petitioning. And so the way Congress wrote the law is that they have to have shown these incredible achievement in the field of arts, science, business, business, or sports, whatever. And so the visa traditionally has been pretty much used by athletes, by actors, entertainers, people who meet the 9 criteria that have been created by regulation, but are really mostly intended to in a model for people who have won, let's say, the world championships of something, or they are this extraordinary successful actor or a model, whatever, an influencer if you want, whatever. But business was always very difficult because there's no competition. There's no world championship for business. You do not get a special prize for being successful in business. That is some sort of a little thing that you plaque that you put on a wall. You do not have your achievement on display. I'm just giving you some of the requirements, and I'm not going to go into the legal aspect of it. But it was very difficult to meet that if you are a person applying in the field of science of business. And so the Biden administration did some really good thing trying to allow science, STEM, to be able to get an equal footing in the national interest and in extraordinary ability. So what Trump is doing is going to say, okay, they did it, but I'm going to take it a step further. I'm going to say that if you have $1 million, if you're an individual and you have $1 million to part with, that means that you're really are incredibly successful in business. And it's kind of this superficial, uh, appeal, but it is kind of ludicrous. I mean, it's just basically saying rich people who can part with a donation of $1 million are of extraordinary ability. I mean, it's a preposterous approach to it, but that's what they basically have done. So if you are one of those people that you can spare $1 million as a gift to the United States, you will get this green card. The idea is in the EB1 category and EB2 category, which basically, and then what they say is going to do it expeditiously. There is a process that called premium processing where you can pay extra money to the government right now, and you get certain kind of application decided in 15 business days. And if they don't decide it or give you a request for evidence, they will return back this premium processing fee. So they're saying we're going to expedite that, and the wink wink is if you have made that donation, you're going to go on at the head of the line of people who are in this category, and we're not going to be probing as much because we already determined that it's basically evidence that you have reached that ability of achieve that ability. So, the regulation says, like, if you have won the Nobel Prize or if you are Olympic champion, then that is by itself a proof of this achievement. And all you can show is your document, and that's it. So now they come in and say, well, if you can show that you can spare $1 million to the government, that's an equal to that. That's the level that you have reached in business. So that's what they unveiled. Again, this is, in my opinion, a ludicrous. It's a gimmick. It's something to attract attention. It is boisterous. It's very much Trump and his persona. And I doubt that there'll be many people who are going to file for it. But I can tell you, it may help people who aren't in the pipelines to use it in their advantage. Then there's this corporate card that they created that if you are an employer and you pay $2 million per an employee, you have this employee coming in with a green card of extraordinary ability, EB1 or EB2. Well, that's clearly a response to the well-publicized Hyundai Georgia raid that they did. Remember where they arrested about 400 people at the plant in Georgia, and 315 or something were national of South Korea who have been transferred by the parent company to install machinery, train the people, and I suppose they were doing other stuff, but that's beyond this discussion. And many of these people either had B visas, B1 visas, which is a business visa for a very short duration, not an H1B visa, or they were using ESTA. And ESTA is something that has grown again of a statutory program called the Visa Waiver Program. There are certain countries that have low overstay rate that have been designated by the administration, the Secretary of State and the Secretary of DHS, as allowing their national people who hold their passport to come into the United States without a visa, just showing your passport, and you get admitted as a visa waiver for 90 days, and you can be here for tourism or to do business, but not productive business. But you can attend meeting, you can attend conference and stuff like this. So a lot of these South Korean workers were here on ESTA. And I think, again, the administrations have been very inconsistent as to what you can do on a B1, the business visa, temporary business visa, and what you can do on ESTA. I think they were clearly overstepping, but as I said, I'll talk to you if there's an interest another time. But what they did is they said, well, you are actually engaged in actual employment that is outside of the scope of what you were admitted for. So they arrested them, put them into a detention facility. There was a big brouhaha with the government of South Korea. Trump allegedly has said, no, they can stay. We're not going to cause a problem for them. But the government of South Korea said, no, we're sending a charter plane. You are going to bring our employee, -1, who decided to stay. We're going to bring him back. And you promise that there will be no consequences, negative consequences from this detention and arrest. And then we can send them back as we choose. So clearly, this corporate gold card was an effort to address that, and they failed miserably at addressing the issue here, because first, let's say if the Hyundai and the parent company or the contractor that was basically supplying the labor want to do that, and they have to pay $2 million for each of the workers that they're sending, they're not going to do that. And second, they need them for a temporary period of time. Those kind of companies that will send people, they're essential workers, really. They send them in for a short period of time, a year or so, and then they bring them back to go home and do whatever they do back home. So these people are not interested in having a green card. And so it's kind of completely a mismatch. And I think no company was going to use that. I just don't see it. It's completely ludicrous. Now, a lot of country has these golden parachute visas, or visas that are allowing you to get their citizenship by investing money, giving money, buying property there. But those are different legal regimes. There is not such a thing in the Title 8, and unless Congress puts that in, the president cannot create that. And so this effort, again, it's a lot to do about bolstering, about publicity, about trying to make something and getting stopped and stymied because sanctuary states and because activist judges. That's going to be the narrative that we're going to hear. So it's kind of again for show, with one thing that was not unveiled that is still in the works, and that's the platinum card. Well, what they say with the platinum card, if you go on that Q&A, you're going to see it's like 2 sentences. It says, we are creating a waiting list from the platinum card. And that, I think, is the original card when he was saying, if you pay $5 million gift, then you will be able to just waltz into the United States. You will be able to be here for 270 days. You'll be able to do whatever you do. You can create a business. You can buy properties. You can be a rich person enjoying the beach, whatever. And we're going to only tax you on the income that you make in the United States. Well, again, this has zero basis in the law that I see, unless it is some sort of a glorified ESTA. So that they will be using the visa waiver program, which is designated for countries, to somehow do it for individuals. I don't know how they're going to do that and on what basis they're going to make that change. But that they will be allowing certain people, let's say, from certain withholdings, maybe the visa waiver applicants, which is mostly Europe and some other rich countries that do not have influx of immigration, that if you make this $5 million gift, the ESTA is going to be approved for 270 days, and you'll be here for 270 days that you can do whatever you want to do. And again, I mean, is that something that is permissible under current law? I don't believe so. We'll see what they unveil, but I see absolutely no basis for it. Now, they're using a provision that is under the Department of Commerce, and that is run by the Department of Commerce in conjunction with the Department of Home State, that allows the Secretary of Commerce to accept gifts and administered gifts for the public of the United States. So the endowments and all that stuff that can be used. But so they are trying to say, well, if a foreign national give us these unrestricted gifts, then the Department of Commerce can take this gift, can administer it, and the Department of Homeland Security can use the existing law to provide these people with status. Well, the problem is there is no existing law that fits that, what they're trying to do. So again, another fanfare-filled, pompous thing that they announced, which will not have an impact on anybody really. except that if they start doing it and doing it behind the scene, because we're not going to know, other than when we start doing FOIA, we're not going to know if they really are giving those cards to anybody. And I don't think a court can come in and says, without a plaintiff or without somebody affected by it, they say you cannot do that. So it's possible that they're going to be doling those as basically a political gratuities to people that they want to, but we're not going to know about it. And until that information comes out, the question is, well, who's going to sue? I mean, the only people that are really going to be affected by that is people who are in the EB1 and EB2 line, and that could possibly have delays or even lose their possibility because people parachuting ahead of and leapfrogging and getting and snapping these visas, because I think they're 22.6% of the annual allotment that is for EB1. And so this is not a huge amount of money, but again, they're current on the visa bulletin. And so if you are not from India, China, Mexico, the Philippines, and you're in that category, you can basically get it. And what they're saying, you can get it in 15 days, perhaps. Well, I mean, is that person that get it somehow going to sue? No. Is somebody other than directly affected be able to sue? I don't see how, because people who are in a waiting list, they're going to say that makes it longer, but we don't know how many people are going to be interested in it. So I think this is going to be a lot more difficult to challenge and be stopped. And anyway, I don't think it has a real chance to get off the ground as a program. So it's another, as I said, these two executive orders were for show. They were very impactful. They stirred the pot. The emotions went flying, and we'll see what the consequences are. But I think it is not something that will just be, oh, the court blocked it and that's it. It is not. It's going to continue this incredible path of using existing dormant clauses of a very old, arcane, and Kafkaesque statute and trying to breathe new life and use it to victimize immigrants. That's what the goal of Stephen Miller is and has been. And so far, they have had marginal success with enforcing it. But I can tell you, I was one of the people who were saying there is no way restrictive policies alone will be able to shut the border. And that the only thing was detention. And I was saying, well, there is no chance that you can build enough detention space to get everybody. Well, I think I underestimated that. As you know, the border has been pretty much shut. There are people who are trying to, but these are, under 6,000 a month. And from what we know from the government, I can tell you from what I see in my practice, people are not being paroled. And I think there's nobody is being released in the United States. That is true. So people who are coming to the border seeking asylum, these people are detained. They are expanding and managed to push the bill, and they got up to 100,000 detention beds and a boatload of money to do that. And they have the money, they just don't have the ability to get somebody. But the more they are going into, they're going to be detaining more people. So restrictive narratives, restricted effort that were planted during Trump 1 actually did for results. I mean, you saw what happened with the approach in Congress from both sides to immigration. I mean, the bottom line became, hey, we're going to eliminate asylum. We're going to close the southern border. It's a given. So this kind of rhetorics and then dropping something like that is not immediately enforceable, that may not be blocked or whatnot, is not going to go without consequences. So what the consequences are, we're going to see. Hopefully they are not going to be as bad. And again, what I'm seeing, I'll be proven wrong. And that will be just flash in the pan and not much. But I'm going to leave you with that, and I hope you join me the next time I stream. As I said, I don't on my schedule. Any practicing attorney will tell you that. I may have an idea. I'm going to stream on this and this date, but if something comes up and I have to approach and put up a fire somewhere, I'm not going to be able to stream. So if you follow me, I'll try to let you know. I'll schedule something, and I'll see you next time. Thank you, guys.